On the 4th of July at 3:30 p.m, 9 public housing towers in Flemington and North Melbourne went into complete lockdown due to an outbreak of COVID-19 cases. The intended health response was quickly misinterpreted when the residents were met with a strong police presence of 500 officers. Residents were left confused as some were unaware of the lockdown and most had little time to prepare or panic buy. The presence of the police was a shock, many of the residents questioning why the first step was to bring in the police and not health workers.
Nothing in there hasn't been refilled. People are more than happy to stay in their houses. They're more than happy to get the testing done. Everybody in Flemington wants to get tested. Everybody in North Melbourne wants to get tested. It's just the way that it was gone about.
Later that day at 4 p.m, the first public announcement in regards to the lockdown was issued by Premier Daniel Andrews. The government responded with the providing of testings for the virus, supplying of food, and other support that would be needed. Police would remain to manage and enforce the strict lockdown. They were also used when health workers arrived. Teams of 2 officers and 2 nurses were assembled. Each team had a trolley containing everything they needed. They would work their way up the building, floor by floor, carrying out the testings. All residents were happy to have their tests conducted. They were also very thankful to finally see the nurses and be able to communicate with them about the lockdown. The role of the police was influential on the outcome of this situation. The people within the community have had negative interactions and associations with officers in the past. Some of the residents come from war-torn countries or police states where the influence of officers is to detain and have control.
Leave the lift and stay in your room for us to deliver your supplies.
The impact of this means that residents weren't comfortable with the response, and it led to the questioning of the necessity of the police over a health response, and why there were so many officers ready on site when they could have been used more effectively deployed on other cases where their presence was actually needed. The result of the police on site at the towers created a prison-like atmosphere, with officers navigating all residents as they were almost gated in the towers.
I don't live here, man. I'm sleeping on the floor. I came to visit yesterday. I was trying to get out. I couldn't get out.
You couldn't get out?
I couldn't get out. They told me you're locked in the building. I don't live here, man.
The whole reason was that there's a lot of people here that don't live here visiting their mums or visiting family that they haven't let us out. So we've literally been stuck here.
I'm sleeping on the floor. I'm sleeping on my hands right now. Look.
Apologies about that, but like do you want to leave right now?
Yes, I want to leave right now.
Okay, I can make a phone call and see if you're allowed to leave.
Okay,
The first official statement by Police Minister Lisa Neville was issued on July 9th, 5 days after the lockdown began, after most residents were tested and able to begin to stage 3 restrictions.
We will have that policing support, but we'll also have support from health. There will be care teams, there will be support teams that are available to people.
500 fully armed police officers were deployed into the buildings, telling us that we cannot leave for food, we cannot leave for work, we cannot leave for medical attention. And this was all without warning. The government said they're going to take care of us, cater to our needs, provide food. But what I'm about to show you is a whole joke. We were expected to eat this, and this as well. Most of the food which was expired. We didn't know whether it's halal, we didn't know whether it's clean, we didn't know whether it's proper. It's disgusting.
It took over 48 hours before the first food and supplies began to arrive, long after the fear of starvation had settled in. The government-provided food deliveries did not consider the diverse cultures of those living within the towers. As a result, many couldn't eat their designated food due to their religion or culture. Thus, the residents refused to eat. This is not to mention the limited quantity or quality of the supplies.
We are sitting here stressed out for a day and a half now.
They received a food box from the state government.
No essentials, no bananas, no milk, none of that kind of stuff.
What they did receive was unappetising.
This expired on the 2nd of May 2020. This expired on the 14th of February 2020. June 2020. Again, May 2020. When it's like, oh my god, this is by 24th of April 2019. Are you serious? This is what you're feeding us? Hey, we human, man.
Amritia Hepi and Juice X Macarena, 2 Melbourne artists, took to social media as a form of protest against the conditions and the supplies provided by the government. They organised public collection of the supplies and direct drop-off to the residents. The collection of goods was informed by a list of basic foods and necessities that the government seemed to have missed. Other organisations such as FareShare and Food Bank began to step in when it was brought to light the low quality of food the government was supplying. The massive community assistance manifested into a protest against the government's provided conditions. Looking more closely at this, food provides humans with a sense of equality. We are able to begin to make judgment of a situation and its conditions when food is brought into the picture. Thus, hunger and starvation as a symbolic refusal of food has been a tool for centuries used as a form of non-violent protest. When people are denied their basic right to sufficient food, it can spark a movement to create change. In this particular case of the Tower lockdown, the government was unable to provide those in need with the basic supplies. Bigger issues surrounding equality and duty of care was revealed. The lack of consideration resulted in a call to attention about culture, visibility, and the necessary needs of the resident. The overall effect of the lockdown saw the revealing of many issues relating to the conditions and treatment of Tower residences. Firstly, the inability of the government to recognise cultures that aren't mainstream made visible the lack of diversity and its considerations within government views. Secondly, the failure to provide necessary supplies and support showed the absence of a duty of care. The Tower's lockdown ultimately led to the protesting against the judgment and inadequate knowledge of minority groups within the Australian government.